Hey, what's going on, parents? Welcome back to another edition of Teenager Tuesday. Today, I am joined with the one, the only, the famous Mary Sollis.
That's me, Mary Bag of Donuts.
Hey, Mary. That's her if you're looking on Instagram. Is that still that's your Instagram?
Still, yes, to
Yes.
this day. I'm not as proud of it as I used to be, but
No?
yes.
But people can find you on there.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of people, if they're watching on YouTube or if they're listening on Spotify, they either recognize you, recognize your voice, because tell them what your role is here at Hope.
Yeah, so I'm the online campus pastor, which is totally new. Like, we're kind of pioneering everything. So I get to, if you do recognize my voice, which that's usually what it is, the voice.
Okay.
They don't always recognize my face,
Yeah.
but they're like, wait, I know that voice. I'm in the videos at the beginning of service and the end of service. So if you're like, I've never seen you, you're coming late or you're not staying till the end.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I get to. I just get to kind of cultivate that community.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Which is really cool. Actually, earlier today, I was looking online on our database, kind of looking for different people that were signing up for Mission Trip. And one person had their primary campus as an online
Really?
campus. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Online campus, which is crazy. I've never seen that. I was like, wait, but what campus do they go to?
Yeah.
And it's online.
And it's unique because it's kind of like you can be both and. You can be someone that goes to campus, but maybe more is like, hey, you're majority online, you know?
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah. And for a lot of people out there who have kids that play on soccer teams, they are both and.
Yes. Yes.
They go to McKinney or they're online driving
They're
to and from.
everything.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Mary, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
I'm excited.
Very excited for you to be here. You, as well as the other campus pastors, we're going to have, it's fun. It's fun. We get to bring you in and kind of talk about different subjects. And God kind of laid this on your heart and your mind.
Yes.
So for the next 2 weeks, parents, to kind of let you know where we're going, we're talking about damage. We're talking about like pain and really abuse and kind of what that can look like, how, it's a very uncomfortable topic.
Totally uncomfortable.
It is.
Yes.
We were talking beforehand, and even then you're like,
Yeah,
I
was
don't
like,
know if
are
I
you
should.
ready for this?
Yeah. But it is. It's something that is very important to talk about, you know, because things that are, it's kind of the scripture of like, sometimes you have to bring things to light to be able for them to be redeemed, you know?
Yeah.
And even just defining, maybe there's the idea of like, I don't really know what this is. And even defining it helps to process it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I walked through abuse myself. And I think that when we think abuse, we kind of tend to think of one specific thing. But I think there's something broader there.
Yeah.
And so if we can kind of understand that, and I knew when I walked through my own healing process,
Yeah.
just understanding some of these things, I wish I had known when I was in ninth grade.
Yeah.
And I wish my parents had known.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there were some simple things that if I had known that, I could have noticed those things and maybe even prevented them.
Yeah.
And so I think that I feel an urgency about this because I do feel like there are, first of all, young people who get into relationships that are abusive by definition, but might not look abusive to maybe the outsider.
Yeah.
And then there's also friendships. We say a lot here, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And, John says that from the stage.
Yeah.
That's kind of something. And we know that in teenagers' lives, relationships are so influential.
Yeah.
And so when you're setting a pattern there, like as a teenager, when you start maybe dating someone, you start having these certain tendencies or doing these certain things in our relationships, they kind of span into their adulthood.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
It is. And I love the way the word that you just used, pattern.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. So many ways and so many things are being set up now that are a way of thought or a way of how we look at our worth is being set up now.
Yeah.
And so like we said, and we're going to get to the redemptive side, obviously, and they're going to, man, I want them to hear your story. But to kind of set us up, like, what are those kind of couple definitions that you want to kind of lean into?
So I'm going to say what abuse is like in a broad perspective, and we'll put stuff in the show notes for you guys. But we're really going to buckle down on emotional abuse.
Okay.
And so abuse defined is abuse means treating someone with violence, disrespect, cruelty, harm, or force. When someone treats their partner in any of these ways, and I would say anyone in any of these ways, it's called an abusive relationship. Abuse in a relationship can be physical, sexual, or emotional, or all of these things. And I'm under the persuasion that I think that all abuse is emotional abuse.
Oh, yeah.
But you can be emotionally abused and not be physically abused, or or things like that. And so emotional abuse defined is it involves creating emotional pain, distress, or anguish through the use of threats, intimidation, or humiliation. This includes insults. I hope that we're all being convicted right now. Insults, yelling, or threats of harm, and or isolation, nonverbal actions such as throwing objects, glaring to project fear, or intimidation. And how I'd boil this down is fear tactics to control people.
Yeah.
And all of us have a tendency to want to control people on our bad days. And so this isn't just someone that has a bad day. I'm talking about getting into relationships or friendships that are habitually like this, like tearing us down, things like that. And so that's what emotional abuse, I would say, is defined by.
Yeah. Well, and parents too, like, I feel like parents can be more reactive or more cautious, maybe is a better way to say it, more cautious when it comes to a dating relationship.
Yeah.
But I love bringing the friendships into it because everybody wants their teenager to have good friends.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to have good friends, find good friendships. And I had friends that my mom was nervous about that she voiced that to me. And then, but honestly, even her voicing it to me made me look out for certain things where before I would just think, this person's cool, I want to be like them.
Yeah, and I remember my mom telling me things and I'd be like, I'm my own person. I'm not taking on their things. Yet years later, look at me, and I was dealing with abuse and didn't even realize it. So I don't know if our teenagers will always respond to that the way we want them to.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I think that we learn from that. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, that was my mom actually teaching me a little bit. And it wasn't that. It was like little things, like petty things, like what I wear and stuff like that. But I think that was just scratching the surface a little bit.
Yeah. That scratching the surface though, it's like whoa, what are you doing? You know? So maybe kind of give some insight into maybe parts of your story and how that can kind of play into maybe some things that their students are walking through.
Yeah, and I'll give you some really clear examples. But for myself, I was in an abusive situation in my family, and I didn't know it for the longest time because it was emotional abuse. So it was the type of abuse you don't see. There's a quote, and honestly, I searched it, and there's different people that say they said it, but all the water in the world can't sink a ship unless it gets inside. Emotional abuse is so destructive. And for me, that was my life. On the outside, I had it all together, and at least I thought I did. But on the inside, I was critiquing myself 24/7, never feeling good enough, never feeling like I could trust my own voice. And that is so important. As young people are growing up, they need to be empowered to know that their voice matters and who they are. They're deciding their identity and everything about them. So when that is attacked, it's so damaging. And so that was my situation. And so it actually wasn't until a big event in my adulthood that caused me to be like, oh, I knew the abuse was there. I just didn't know what to do about it because I was still caught in it because it was a pattern. And so I want to give you guys some of the things that are kind of practical that you can see so that you can be like, okay, not only just to know these things for your own sake of teaching your kids to look for these things and noticing it in themselves. We want teenagers to be able to look in the mirror, not just replicate something. You know what I mean? So we don't want to control them, we want to empower them. So how can we get them empowered?
That's good. Write that down if y'all are listening.
And we'll say that more again.
Empower, not control.
That's huge because that teaches them to be an adult and to grow and mature, not to do what you say, just do what you say.
And maybe unintentionally, parents would maybe just, again, unintentionally slightly lean into that emotional side or emotional abuse side. Again, a very uncomfortable thought, but if the goal is to control more than empower, again, very uncomfortable. And no well-hearted, Christ-centered parent would want to do that, but maybe unintentionally lean there.
Oh yeah, I think we all have that abuse, a tendency to abuse in us. And so we have to have the humility to say, what is that in me? And can I recognize that? And can I be caring in that? And so here's a few things, especially, and you're really going to see this in dating relationships, but I think it's also in friendships, like you mentioned, and working with teenagers in regeneration and things like that, the things they say to each other in friendships, I'm like, wait, no, they shouldn't say that. That's abusive, you know? Like, do you know what I mean? So like, there's some places where we say it's okay and it's not. Let's teach people to talk well to their friends, like, and to treat their friends with respect. Like, that's so huge, even in our friendships, even if it's like, we're just kidding. Eventually it's not, like, at the end of the day, it's not funny. It hurts. And I've even told my husband, I'm like, if I'm joking in a way enough to where you actually, like, I'm actually hurting you, please tell me. Like, because it's a joke until it's not. And so here's a few things. In jokes, that's a big one. So spewing insults or otherwise ridiculing you. So friends that ridicule.
Down.
And they call it a joke. And so therefore you shouldn't be offended.
You're being so sensitive.
Don't be so sensitive. So now the person can't defend themselves. They have no way of protecting themselves against being mistreated. It's damaging, and I'm saying that from personal experience. Attempting to make you question your own sanity. This is gaslighting, so maybe you've heard of gaslighting. And everyone's like, what?
I feel like that word is like all over the place right now.
And people are like, what does it mean? I'm gonna give a really basic example that's funny, and it's not totally gonna explain it, but give you a basic idea. If you're walking down the hallway, I actually heard this recently, walking down the hallway and someone said, it's cold. And two people came up and they said, it's not cold. But that person's cold. So it's cold, you know? So it's getting the person, it's saying, it's making them question their own perspective and reality. And so at the end of the day, when that happens, and I found this in my own situation, we don't know what we think or feel. We have totally lost our own understanding of who we are when that happens. So it is super damaging. And we do it like carelessly sometimes, and it doesn't seem damaging. You know?
Because crazy thing, you can't force somebody to feel a certain way. Like, and we can't even force ourselves to feel. Like sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we can't control the way that we feel. We can always control what to do with those feelings. You know, but we can't control the way that we feel.
Another one is invading your privacy. So maybe you've heard of like teenagers that are dating, and the guy or the girl will be like, well, give me your social, or I saw what you posted on someone else's social media. Don't post those things, or don't comment, or don't like those things. Like they start controlling these parts of this significant other's life, you know? So they'll start controlling how they post things and who they interact with, all that kind of thing. So kind of just, that's crossing a boundary. That's not they don't have the space to do that, but they do it. And they will do it, and teenagers will think it's okay. They'll be like, oh, okay, well, we're dating and we're in love, so it's okay.
So here's my passwords.
They do. They legitimately do that. I was talking to a girl, and a guy repetitively asked for pictures of her. She said no. She finally blocked him, and then she felt bad. She felt so bad for doing that. Like, no, like he's invading your privacy. And so anyways, that's okay, tangent. We're going to get off, and we're going to stay on time. Trying to control your life, kind of in that same vein, isolating you. So you're really going to see that as a parent.
Oh my gosh,
you know, more than other
Notice
people.
the differences,
and then making overt threats. This is a big one. If you break up with me, I'll kill myself, or I'll hurt myself, or I'll do something to myself. And that's control at the end of the day. So those are the kind of the things you can see.
I mean, and that one happens more often than you would actually think. You would think this, like a lot of this stuff never happens. That last one, 3 weeks ago, that was literally happening. There was a situation.
And you can have a teenager and not know these things are happening in their life. So you might be thinking, not my kid. I promise you, I'm hoping that that's not the situation, but it's messy, and kids are maturing. And so their friends and their relationships are with people that are immature as well. So these two immature people that are growing in their faith and growing in who they are, these things are going to happen. So I would say, if you're thinking that, maybe just let your guard down a little. Maybe approach it with, this could be happening with my kid right now. Which is a good conversation. I would say that's a good spot to end today, where parents out there, man, go in, and hopefully we bring up a lot of conversations that are either uncomfortable or just awkward because you just haven't had them before. I would encourage you, parents, if there's something that you see as a yellow flag happening in your student's life, friendships, relationship, whatever, then, man, that might look like a yellow flag to you, but it could be a red flag that's currently happening. So, man, lean into that, and make sure that you tune in next week, too. We're going to continue this conversation. As always, you're not alone. God is with you, and so are we. We'll see you next week for part 2. See ya.